Welcome back to the Chill Sounds and Breakdowns podcast. We are hosted right here out of the Rail in Fort Worth, our home. Check out their event list at therail.net and come out to something. They have a variety of shit you can come out to. But, man, I am always excited for my guests. But today, this is someone that is doing something that I started. Let me correct that. I didn't start it. I started doing with a group of my friends, but they were the ones that kind of did it beforehand and kind of helped create NoiseROT in a way because of the experience that DJ got. But today I got Tiron from Aeronotiqz. What's going on?
Hey man, I appreciate you having me, man. It's an honor to be on the Chill Sounds and Breakdowns podcast. It's, I definitely been a fan for years, watching you and watching what you guys have been doing, and just the Chill Sounds and Breakdowns, the festival. Seeing how that grew and how it grew into a brand, and it was just awesome to see. And then just as somebody who knows what's going on in that space and seeing something develop into a brand, that it really shows how hard you guys worked on that and how it resonated with the people. And it's just awesome to see friends grow and see friends accomplish things that that was once a lofty goal, and now it's just a normal weekend. No, really. There's a lot that I want to get into, but one thing, and it's funny because with podcasting, you always start talking beforehand, and you're wait, that would be good on this. And one thing, we'll get to it, but I asked you you ever been to the Rail before, and it actually ends up being we're gonna take it back to the roots of this. I want to find out a lot more about Aero, but you were mentioning that was a moment where this thing changed for you, or maybe elevated for you. Yes. So the last time I was here at the Rail Club, it was June 2021. A friend of ours named Ashes, he's an artist, but he also threw his own events. He had booked Xavier Wolf. And at the time, we had been, kind of circling Xavier Wolf. We worked with one of his good friends, Jeffrey, for a few years at that point. And we were like, hey, man, can you introduce us? We want to book him, Xavier Wolf, he's an underground legend, So we, started conversations, and then at Ash's event, we came, Aeronotiqz clothing, we set up a vendor table, but we had plans of talking to Xavier Wolf and his team after the event. So it went as planned. Crazy event, 500-600 people here, seeing the line wrapped around, the building. So after the event, we talked to Xavier Wolf and his team. We talked about booking them in San Antonio and Houston, and then it happened. We came to terms. I actually drive home 30 minutes from the Rail Club, go pick up some money, and then bring it back to Xavier Wolf and his team, and then we count it out, pay them a deposit, and then from there, the rest is history, as I say. That was just coming out of COVID. Not a lot of people were throwing events, and a lot of the major companies, they weren't throwing events. They were scared. Everybody's scared, But at that point, 2021, down here in Texas, we're coming back outside. Some people never went inside, So being able to work with an artist that size, and that just kind of kicked off everything for us. That gave us the credibility that we needed to talk to other venues, talk to other artists, talk to other DJs. They gave us, an extensive email list, gave us, a practice run of the big leagues. Because before that, the biggest events we were doing were about 300, 250 people, occasionally, 500-600, for some of our, festivals at the time. But being able to do 5 shows with Xavier Wolf, that's what it ended up growing into. I can definitely say that my last time here at the Rail Club was really a pivotal, life-changing moment for me as a person and for our company.
Yeah. Yo, what's going on, guys? It's OC, your host for the Chill Sounds and Breakdowns podcast. And I know what you're saying. Another ad on this podcast. Yes, but this one, you can help support the podcast. You might be seeing these beautiful Chill Sounds and Breakdowns podcast hats here on the table, where they're not just for decoration. We're selling these hoes, okay? This podcast, I don't get paid for this, so I need some money. Let's try to do that again. Less desperate. These hats look very cool, and it would be very cool of you to buy one to put on your head and look even more cool than you already do, all right? If you want to tell people that you have impeccable taste, that you listen to all types of music, and you listen to the best podcast in the entire world or tri-state area, or maybe just this area here, this is the best podcast in this room, probably, then you should get one of these hats so that you can help support a local business and a local podcast, and so you can help support artists to come here and talk shit. Okay, that's the whole point of this. But yes, go to NoiseROT.com to pick out your Chill Sounds and Breakdowns hat or other merch. We got stickers, we got pins. Pick something up, and thank you for supporting the podcast.
No, definitely a big milestone, cornerstone, whatever like you want to call it, where it's like you get this. I mean, you're out here seeking the opportunity, but it's also like there's a lot of moments for people where like this opportunities like these come up, but like, are you going to drive all the way home and do it now? He's like, you know what? Am I about this or am I not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think in the history of like what I've known about you and like known you, it's like you are that like type of person where it's like not only seeking out the opportunities, but like when they're in front of you, like taking them. And it's like, okay, you know, I need to make this now. Like who, you know, cause anybody else is like, oh, okay, like, man, you know, well, I'll hit you up this week or this and that, and we'll solidify details. And that opportunity can be gone. You know what I mean? Like, you know what? I was talking to you here today. Are we gonna do this now or not? And like the fact that you drove half an hour like home and then drove all the way back and met them up to solidify that, it's like, we're doing this. Like, you know what? I am serious about this. That you, again, are wanting to be in that realm of like, hey, a serious contender in this even bigger like promotion, I guess, circle and like event, you know, coordinating circle to like level up and be kind of just showing that you are like ready for that next like level and step. But yeah, I think that's super cool just to see that like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it now.
Yeah, and it's definitely comes from times of not being ready and not being able to seize opportunities. I've been, you know, doing this for a while. We've had this company for a while. You know, started the clothing company in 2010, 2011 with some friends. Started throwing events in 2013, and just from that time of 2013 to 2021, there's definitely a lot of opportunities that we missed. A lot of times that we've been right next to the next upcoming artist, but we're not ready or we don't have the funds at the time to book them, you know, while they're still attainable on the way up. And it just comes from, okay, I know I wasn't ready then, now I need to be ready now. And especially coming out of COVID, it's like, all right, opportunity meets being prepared, you know. Whenever the stars align for you. And that definitely is what I like to say for everybody is if you miss one opportunity, that's not the last opportunity, you know? And then like, that's the thing that I feel like nowadays we're so hard on ourselves and we're thinking like, oh, I missed that one. Oh, it's never going to happen for me. It's like, no, you got to keep going. Yeah. You just have to, because there's infinite amount of possibilities, infinite amount of opportunities that are going to be out there, but you have to be there. The only way for you to get those opportunities and be able to receive that blessing is showing up and being there. So, there's been so many times I set up at different events where there's 5 people there. I set up at 6 p.m. I stay till 2 a.m. I don't sell anything. We throw an event. There's 5 people there for 6 hours. And it's like, hey, no, you just got to keep going. Yeah. You know, because if you give up, then you totally eliminate that chance for you to progress. And then just the meaning of Aeronotiqz is, you know, the science of progression. The original spelling is the science of flight. You know, but we changed it to the science of progression because even before we didn't know what anything meant. We were kids, but it was like, for you to actually get something, you have to progress to it. You can't just want that overnight microwave success, because most of the time it won't last. And just being able to set a goal and, all right, I'm going to work towards it. And you have to put in that work every day to get better, you know?
Yeah, you're the only one like that can eliminate the chance of like having another possibility or having another like opportunity. Like you are the only one that's gonna eliminate that by you quitting and giving up. And then like I've like had conversations with people like, if you don't want to do it anymore, it's like, then don't, because that means you're not willing to put in like the work. Because this is, again, most people like give up very close to the beginning, like to what they're doing. And I'm like, I'm all for it. Like, do it, because then you're not gonna. That means you weren't gonna push like later on. You know what I mean? And that, not that it matters only later on. Like, it matters now. Like, it matters now, tomorrow, like every single day that you're doing this. Like, that you are pushing just like you would push if you were at the goal that you see. Because there is a lot of like, people see the end product of something and just like want that, but they don't want any of the work with it, or they don't want any of that journey, and you gotta want it all. Like you have to, or not only maybe not necessarily want it all, but you gotta take all of it. Everything that comes with it. Like you again, like going to those events and not having like the most successful times, like having opportunities that got missed. That maybe someone else came in and they were like a little more prepared than you were that time, or like and they took that, and those are all. I'm sure those happen a lot, especially with like again with booking and things like that, where I mean there's obvious competition out there for artists and things like that, but it's being able to take those losses or whatever and just turn them into opportunities. Like, okay, how do next time you get better? Again, like what you were saying, like being in a time where you might have missed this shot like early on in the career, but now being at a moment where like, I can take this step and I'm going to do it now. Yes,
absolutely. And then really, like you said, not being prepared and somebody else got that opportunity. There's so many moving parts. Everything's happening, and everything's evolving. And clothing, this trend that was hot, now it's not hot anymore. While you were getting ready to stock up on that, all right, things changed. So it's like, all right, while things are changing, that might be discouraging, but it's like, no, things are always changing. So we can always hop back in it, and I feel like you said, you have to, whenever you want this, you have to take everything with it. And I feel like more and more people, they're showing, they're showing like the lifestyle behind it, showing you the ups and the downs. But I feel like it's still not resonating with people. Like, hey, you're gonna go through these ups and downs as well. Like these are signs that you're on the right path.
Yeah.
And then as cheesy as it sounds, it's crazy nowadays. I'm like, all those cliches are true, But it's like,
God.
But it's like, the ups and the downs, and it's just like, while you're going through, these peaks and valleys, you have to appreciate it. And, whenever you see those people who've made it, they say, it's about the journey. It really is, because, now that I'm in the positions, like I can think back, it's like, man, the times where we had 7 people riding in a car to North Carolina, the times where we have 12 people sleeping in an Airbnb, the times where we're like, like I said, it's 5 people, and 2 of them are the people that you're working with.
Yeah.
One of the people is the DJ, and one person's the artist on stage, and the other person's the vendor. And you guys are all there for each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, we're going to look back on this, and at the time it sounds like, cliche, but it's like, no, if you keep working, you're going to make that, like a core memory of like, all right, from this point I knew I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. Cliches are definitely like, like they're there for a reason. They're because like they are that common. They're almost like not completely like universal laws, but like they happen so frequently that's why these things are saying. So and it's just in the moment when you might be struggling with something, the last thing you want to hear is like, you got, just ups and downs. Like you're coming back and you're like, you just kind of like, shut up. Like I just need to focus on this. I want to figure this out. And then it always happens upon reflection. Like for me, it's never worked when people are trying to tell me this in the moment of like, if I'm having like, a hard time or whatever.
Especially when you're young too.
Yeah, you're very like, no, I'm not. I don't want to hear that. Like, it's got to be all. You think it's? I've been like stubborn enough where it's like, it's got to be all rise. There's no there's no downside to this. Or as soon as there's a dip in something, I think there's something wrong. And I'm like, I was like, well, no, that's kind of a natural thing. But yeah, like cliches are. It's funny because like the older I've gotten, the more I've like, I say like them all the time, but truly mean them. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, it's definitely like a wisdom thing. You got to experience these things to go through it. But I'm going to take you back a little bit to the beginning, because you said Aeronotiqz started as a clothing brand. So where does this like idea come to you to do this, to start this?
Man, it was just me and some friends in high school, and we were just, kids who like to dress, and we were like, man, like we need to do something, let's do something. We had no idea what we were doing, and they're just like, that's what we're gonna land on. And I was listening to a song by Currency, and then he says, I perfected my role in the science of aeronautics, and I was like, that just sounds cool.
Yeah,
let's do that. Let's change the spelling, and then we just kind of built it from there. I drew like a little logo, and then there is a website called Spreadshirt, and then you can just upload your own design and sell it on there. A t-shirt costs $13 to produce,
Okay.
And then we had our $2 on there, and it's like, that's our profit. And then we just started from there, ordering the clothes and wearing it around school, and then getting some people to, support us. And then after graduating high school is, all right, let's turn this into something. Let's buy 50 shirts. Let's buy some stickers, and let's really do something. And then we were just fortunate to be around some people at the time that were also trying to do stuff. Dizzy, he made music. Clay made music. Clay West. And then we had a few friends that did photography, a few friends that DJ'd, and it was just like, all right, let's just do some stuff, and then it just kind of, between making a business plan and like, all right, let's actually do something. Let's sponsor some people. Let's give them some clothes to wear, get some cross marketing. And it was kind of like, all right, I kind of knew some stuff, just from reading online, but it was like just going with the flow. And then things just kind of progressed to being around a lot of musical events, a lot of local stuff, being able to showcase my local art while they're showcasing their local music art. And it just kind of delved into, us wanting to throw our own events, seeing that, hey, most of our sales, most of our, exposure is coming from these events. Let's try our hand at that. And also meeting other artists, that also might have been aggrieved, in the event space. And that's something that happens with every industry. There's the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And then especially at that time in 2011, 2012, 2013, there's not as much of DIY shows going on. There's not as much of people being able to get into venues and throw their own events. Kind of like a who's who or not what who type of situation. So being able to try our hand at that and throw our first couple events, and it just kind of skyrocketed from there. It grew a lot faster than the clothing, and then that's how things kind of developed to where we are today. And then us put more energy into the shows, and then still always bringing it back to the clothing, always setting up our table and stuff. But it was like, all right, the shows, we're really providing something, that people want and people need, so we just kind of just kept growing from there.
Yeah, I think when actually DJ, who introduced me to Dizzy and then to you, we played when we were in a band together. We played it was like a mixed genre show at the time. It was Lola Saloon.
Oh yeah,
that was a long time ago, and that was my first exposure to like Aeronotiqz as like a brand of stuff. And I remember just like walking in because I was like, I don't even think I knew much about the music scene to begin. I think I was still very, very much like green. I didn't understand how it all worked, but I was like, it was just me. Like, we're playing a show, cool. Like, that's fine, or whatever. But seeing the table spread and seeing like the clothing at the time, I'm like, this is like, as weird as it's gonna sound, I was like, this is real. Like they do this. Like they like started their own brand like together. And then forever, like I didn't know it was the clothing brand first. Like I always, because that was my first interaction was with Aero booking shows. So I was like, okay, that's what they do, and they have like their own merch. But it was like, no, it went from being like, it's not a merch line. Like it's actual like clothing. Like it's an actual like fashion thing. And I remember being like, oh shit, I must have like said like merch and probably offended somebody because it's not like a brand merch. You know what I mean? It's like. It is like fashion pieces, like basically, like it is an actual like fashion thing.
Man, that's awesome to hear because that's always been the goal. And then, like you said, it started off as clothing, and then I was definitely like in the beginning, like, yes, it's clothing, it's not merch, But like I over time, I was like, no, like it is, it's merchandise, merch is merchandise, So I kind of dropped that, but no, that's that was always the goal, to create a brand, create. Lifestyle. And then that was like a real buzzword, whenever we started this in 2011, 2012, 2013. But it's like, it's really like what it is, just, something that we can live. And I just, it's awesome that the meaning behind it actually came to fruition and we were able to progress to it. For us, it was never like an overnight thing. It was always years and years of building that contact list, years of building that email list, years of building relationship with artists and venues, and just slowly building, slowly growing, slowly making it out of DFW around Texas, slowly making it around the country and then outside of the country, and just slowly being able to grow into bigger events. So it's just awesome being able to, live it. And just with the clothing being a brand, and kind of there's times where I'm at events and people, they don't know that I'm the person that's behind everything. It's like, perfect. it's working. The goal worked, you know, like for it to be an actual face, for it to be faceless, and for it to be a brand that stands on its own and not really, you know, dependent on what I do, because something can happen to me and everything can keep flowing, you know. I always respect artists because I feel like it's a lot harder for them because their business is themselves, their brand, they're their own logo, and it's like, all right, you have to kind of maintain this aura or maintain this status, you know, for you to keep going, you know. True. So it's always like, man, I always respect artists for the weight that they have on them, you know. So
so creating more of an entity that can stand on its own. That faceless thing is a smart thing for like you know, this like fashion brand, and also like the branding that you've made with your events. You know what I mean? The biggest thing I think where I was pushing, I think like I can't remember what year of NoiseROT, but I'm like, one of my like statements and goals, like I want it to get to the point. I was like, one thing with us, like I do like having our faces behind it. I was like, I do like showing off our personalities, but I go, that's to like, if we create a fan base like around NoiseROT, people like who will know NoiseROT, be like, oh, okay, I know the people, even if they don't know us personally, like they'll know all the content pieces and stuff like that we put out. Okay, they'll know like kind of our personalities or whatever. But also on the other hand, like somebody saying like, oh, there's a NoiseROT show going on, like I'm gonna go to that. Like that also like seems like a great thing to have. It's just like, people going because they know like we're doing like good work or we're putting on like a good show. It's like, oh, okay, so we're gonna go to that because like that's something worth like the faceless thing like comes in where like, oh, that would be really great if just by name recognition they'd be like, this is gonna be fucking like good.
No, there's just over the years, and it's crazy like how many years passed, but hearing people say like, oh, well, I don't really know who these artists are, but I'm gonna go because they're live shows and it's always a good time, you know. It's like whenever I like hear that or like overhear somebody say that, it's like, oh, like
that's it. It's like it's working, that's what's going. But
exactly,
and it's grown so much. Like I said, all these things were cool, like because I did get to see a lot of this stuff from the outside, like on the way, because I knew like Dizzy was part of it and stuff like that. So like, but all the involvement, like you were saying, with artists and stuff like that, like it's stuff that I didn't quite notice maybe, but it was like the placement of like the brand in like musical artists and sponsoring artists. I remember you guys had like a roster of like artists that, you know, all had like the clothing on, stuff like that. And it was always like, I don't know, it just seemed like a whole cohesive part to like it felt like they went together, which makes sense why you ended up going into like the, you know, the event space, because I think the branding took on the culture of like music, you know what I mean? So like it all went together, so it became like this cohesive thing, and I think that's what kind of allowed both parts of it to thrive like as much as they have, and they've thrived a lot, because I mean, one thing you said, like you were first, you know, going out of town and then like all over the country, and then you've gone international, which is wild, which is fucking crazy. But what all places have you gone? I think Colombia was like one of my first like times I heard that you guys did something down there. But what other places have you guys done?
Colombia, and then we're heading out to Canada in August.
Oh shit! Okay,
yeah, we'll have 4 shows in Canada: Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Montreal, with Black Smurf, part of the Hustle Chaos tour. So that'll be our second country outside of Colombia that we've done. Yeah,
the Colombia thing was nuts when I remember Dizzy brought it up. And I mean, first of all, Dizzy like travels like all over the place. Yeah. So I thought he was like, when he said like we you know, he's like, oh yeah, we're going to Colombia, and I'm like, oh cool, you taking another trip, dude? Like you're always going somewhere. Yeah. He's like, no, Aero is, and I'm like, what do you mean? And it's like, he's like, no, we've like worked out a deal. We're like doing some events down there. I was like, that's fucking crazy. I was like, that's wild to me. And then seeing like event success, like again in this country that you're like not native from, and just taking again that jump. Like how do these jumps like feel like when these things become a reality?
Oh, it's confirmation, you know, it's elation, it's euphoria. It's just like, it feels like, you know, that you just won something, you know, you just accomplished a goal. Mm-hmm. But for me, and it's kind of like the gift and the curse, it lasts for about a day, and then it's all right. Back to work. Let's execute. All right, we locked it in. Let's make it happen. It happens. We have a successful event. So okay, how can we do it again? And that's always been my thing. Even from back in doing stuff at Lola's, it's all right. This event ended. I'm going right back up to the bartender, the bookers. Like, hey, what other dates you have open? Let's do it again. I was always a person that my partners and stuff had told me, hey, you got to slow down. We're doing too much. We're oversaturating the market. But I'm like, man, we can't stop. We just have to keep going. And it's just that driving me. It's like, okay, like if we did this, then that means we can do this like this, or that means we could do this in this genre, or that means we could do this in this city, and it's just like, all right, we have this formula. Let's see if it works over here. Let's see if it works over here. Let's see if it works with this artist who has like this tiny different bit of a fan base, but we'll be able to, grab some more people and then bring them back to this other genre, which, I always say you gotta give people a lot of credit. We all like to listen to a bunch of different stuff depending on our mood. So just because somebody makes rock music, that doesn't mean that you can't play in front of a whole crowd of people who listen to hip hop. They probably listen to rock every other day, So I'm always a big person of like, okay, let's try it. Let's see what we can do. Let's not be afraid, and that comes from whenever I was younger, I was afraid, and I was a person that was really shy and timid, couldn't speak up. And through this business, and that's why it kind of feels like it's all cosmic and everything happens for a reason. It's able to bring me out of that shell and make me be able to take risk and be able to speak up for myself and be able to, all right, let's do it. Let's make something happen.
Yeah. It definitely has like had again, this is like from someone who's seen you like on the outside, but that growing like confidence in what you do, and even like the way you speak, from like the instances where I've like ran across you and stuff like that, there is a progression to like how like you are today versus like the first day that I met you. And it's so cool to see, because I mean that's what the science of progression, like that's literally the model and theme, and like you've not only like spoke it, but like you've taken that trajectory and actually like lived it. It's like, oh yeah, there is a actual progression that you can see on, numbers wise, that you can see in like who you're becoming, like who, like there's so many like signs that you've like kept up that mission statement. Like, like that it is actually like following through with it. Yeah.
And sometimes involuntarily, man, like life is taking me on a journey. Like I told you, on the way up here, I was like, man, life's been lifing. And it's like, it's like the same thing of, I was a person who really like this was my life. Aero, as soon as I wake up, all right, what do we got to do today? What I got to make happen? I'm at work at my 9 to 5. All right, I'm trying to check my phone, check emails on the side, send out what I can. And it was like, even to a detriment of, some personal relationships. But it's like, all right, just how I said this company has to grow through progression. All right, me as a person, I have to grow. I have to progress. I can't just want to be better the next day. I have to work at it. And like you said, you got to take the good with the bad, the ups and downs, the peaks and the valleys. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. Even today, like all this stuff is happening and all this stuff's going on. We're going to these different cities, selling out, hundreds of tickets. But still, all right, some days I still doubt myself, and you got to be okay with that. And you have to, figure out what works for you and how you get back on track, So you still to this day can't give up. You still got something driving you.
I was listening to something today. It's actually it's funny that we were talking like, I love podcasts, but I listened to a different podcast. But they were bringing something up, and this was like bands, like touring bands and stuff like that. But they were saying like the bigger the unfortunate part about success sometimes is that the bigger the peak you're hitting, the bigger that high that you're hitting, like you're gonna come down from it. There's no way to be up there the entire time. He's like, and then it just sucks because it's a steeper fall, like, to come back. And so you do start worrying, like, okay, like, oh, what if that was the best that I was gonna, like, you could get stuck in stuff like that. But yeah, bouncing back is definitely like something super important. Like you've got to figure out ways like how to be better. And normally it's hopefully like a fun part of it. It's hopefully like why you're doing. But I mean, you mentioned something without going into too like personal, like unless you want to. But you were talking about like relationships that suffered. So how do you in the moment, does it feel like, did those moments where like some of those relationships suffered, or some of like the, you know, whatever relationships with people that, you know, ended up like causing some friction because of the work ethic, because of like maybe you don't have time for stuff. In those moments, do you ever feel like you reflect and be like, maybe like I do need to take a step back, or is it never a doubt, or is it always like an internal struggle for you?
I'd say it's always an internal struggle, but now, you know, it's like, okay, sometimes I do need to take a step back. Like I'd say the last, because we start this tour next week, April 11th. Mm-hmm. Before that, we had a show in March, and before that, we had a show in November. Usually, we're doing shows every weekend, back to back to back to back, and then just having some time just to slow down, and you know, but okay, I like this. I like being able to slow down and not be on the go as much, you know. And it was kind of like a hustle culture of like, no, we got to keep going. But I just feel the older I got, it's like, all right, you have to have that balance, you know, because life is all about balance, and you know, those people, those relationships, that's what's gonna keep you up, you know, and that's what's gonna keep you from these hard falls, you know, that you mentioned on the podcast, you know. I feel like whenever you're super committed, you know, your whole self-value and self-worth is tied into how successful you are, and then you're bound to go through a rut. The biggest companies on the Fortune 500, they have down quarters. So whenever you're feeling down, you know, you can't have all of your self-value tied into your work ethic, because then you're going to feel down. So those people around you, those relationships, that's what keeps you up. Even if it's people that you work with, hey, have to have some kind of personal relationship to, you know, so you guys can be there for each other, so you can vent, you know. I feel like nowadays we're really big on mental health, but, you know, we have to be bigger on, you know, talking about stuff and just holding each other accountable for, hey, like, let's just talk, you know, talk to me, let me know how you're doing, you know. And definitely, like, just bring it back to your question, I have felt that, all right, you know, taking a step back and focusing on, you know, those personal relationships, like, I definitely should have done more of that, and I'm definitely trying to do more of it now, you know. And it's like, all right, you kind of got to know when to stop, you know, not to stop, you know. Pursuing your dreams was, all right, I've done this, I've established this, okay, I can take some time, you know, off, you know, to refill my cup, you know, and then be able to go back out there with that same desire, you know. So, because I can say, me personally, after taking, you know, only doing a couple shows over the last 6 months, like, now I'm ready for this tour. I'm ready to go out there and kill it. I'm ready to, you know, sell as many tickets as possible, sell as much merch as possible, make sure the fans have, you know, the best experience. You know, we're bringing out as much stuff as we can, as many different, you know, attractions, you know, and it's all a part of like, all right, we're able to take a step back and really see what the people want, instead of like just on the go, you know? Yeah.
No, you touched on a really important part, which is like not putting your self-worth and like value into, you know, what you're striving for. I went through a point, because we were talking about social media actually earlier, and like and content and stuff. Like, I was like, oh, I haven't seen the content. And one of my biggest struggles with it at first was my pressure on the numbers of content. And social media has made it very easy to judge yourself on likes, on comments, on what the fuck ever. It's made it the simplest way to be like, oh, there's like, you know, there's a quantizable like number that you could assign to yourself and be like, oh shit, like, whatever you were doing in it, like, oh, maybe I'm not like as good as I think I am, or whatever. Like, if you put value into it, like, and I was doing that at first, where I was just, and this was like early on into like me doing anything social media. I would definitely like be like, fuck this, like I suck, and it wouldn't be like, oh, this didn't do as well. Like, I never considered anything other than like, if it didn't do well, it meant like I was bad, like I sucked at what I did, or this thing was. I go, why am I even doing this stuff? Nobody likes it, like nobody cares or whatever. And slowly transitioning into one thing that I think when I did something. I made a vlog, like, actually during the pandemic year, which is fucking sucked. But I was like, you know, I'm gonna stick to this, and I don't care like about like how well this does. I go, I'm just gonna do something for fun finally. And it was one of the first times where I'm just gonna do it and put it out. And, you know, who cares about the numbers? But when we started doing it as like a business thing, I do know how important it is. Like, okay, like if it's not doing well, like it's not functioning for what I need it to do. But also like definitely having a more like almost set it and forget it. Like I can't really forget it all the way, but like set it to the point where like, oh, if it doesn't do well, I need to analyze, okay, what do I need to change for this content to help whatever like I'm trying to accomplish. But whether it's like getting more people out to a show, whether it's letting people know about an artist, whether it's like promoting, you know, this podcast or whatever, figuring out the reason like, okay, how do I get it to do what I need it to do, but not basing my value on it anymore. But yeah, I do know a lot of people that struggle with that. And then like the whole thing about like people would post stuff and then like delete it if it didn't do well. Yeah. Like I was just like, oh, I don't want to be that person. Or because I know what that means behind the doors. Like, oh, like you didn't get enough likes or whatever. And I'm like, it just feels weird. Like, because the stuff that I make, I want to put out there. Like, you know, whether, you know, this many people see it or this many people see it. So I'll just, like, I just need to put it out. Like, and that's when I followed more a consistency plan. Like I just need to be consistent, like, and put out stuff like regularly. Like whether this one doesn't do well, but you know, the next two might, you know, or whatever. It was like, but as long as I don't stop like doing it, or figuring out new ways to make it interesting for myself. But yeah, reflecting back on like actual like personal relationships and making sure that there are people that you can reach out to and talk to and then understand what you are dealing with. You know what I mean? So I think with you, even like from the start of Aero, what you were saying, like, oh, you know, one of us did this, one of us did that. You know, you're around a peer group that understands, like, to a degree, what you're trying to do. So if you need to talk about it or vent to somebody, like, these people will get it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think as your years have gone, you've acquired even more like people that you're in the realm with where you can talk to and be like, oh, this is, you know, I'm dealing with this right now. And they're like, okay, I understand that. And I remember when I was maybe when I was on the band or even starting NoiseROT, if it wasn't like my immediate team, like I did have other people to talk to, but sometimes I would talk to people completely outside of the realm and they're like, oh man, that sucks. But they really like don't understand what it means. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can't really talk to you about this. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like venting to vent, but like, I'm not going to get anything productive out of here. But, yeah, is that have you cultivated like relationships like that now where you got people to talk to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then that's also ties into always sharing resources, you know, because having those people that you can talk to is all right, I'm dealing with this situation. Like, have you dealt with this? You know, how can, you know, whether it's like personal or whether it's in business, like, all right, how did you deal with this? How can I deal with this? What do you suggest? You know, and then sharing resources and, you know, that person, they may go on to, you know, do something in a different field or do something bigger and they're able to share those resources back. And it's really important developing relationships throughout these industries, you know, because, your network is your net worth. That's another super cliche, saying, but that means so much, you know, as we've started to grow outside of, you know, the DFW area, outside of Texas. It was all about, hey, like, have you done something in this area? Have you worked with this artist? Can you connect me? Can you connect me with a DJ here? I'm a big person that says, hey, ask whoever, you know, because their boyfriend's cousin might have been in a band and they did a show at this venue. So they know the person who bartended and they can connect us, you know. So I'm a huge believer in cultivating relationships, you know.
The connections thing is so big in like whatever, I feel like in whatever industry, but entertainment especially. Like there's
tentacles everywhere.
Yeah. But the idea of networking, the word itself to me, business meeting, like fucking cocktail party or some shit. That's what was in my head. And I'm like, I don't know how to fucking do that. And then the more and more like I go through, you know, just meeting people, I'm like, that's what that fucking is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Every now and then when I'm like, I need a photographer. Like, I talk to all these people that do it. You know what I mean? Okay, I can hit them up. Or man, like I'm looking for an artist or something. Like, like I know tons of like them, and maybe they know somebody else or stuff like that. But it's all like, but you meet again, like the bartenders, like especially is like, like the bartenders at venues, like these like bands all the time. Especially if you need to know like, oh, how many people are these people bringing in? Oh, like they brought in this many, like blah blah blah, or no, you know what, they were trouble. They did this. Okay, cool. Like you get like real stories from like people from, but it's all about making those like genuine connections with people, because all of them, like, you don't know, again, like you were saying, like you don't know who knows somebody like in some sort of industry, and all like these 6 degrees of separation like type shit where like, oh, this person knows this person, like, okay, let's loosely put them in contact. Like I got one, actually we were talking about social media, and like I was gonna go do I was starting to try to do social media for like outside people, and then I had somebody, a photographer friend of mine, that she was talking about, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go do this festival down in Buda, Texas, for a band called Bandful of Nuns. And she's like, oh, like, do you want me to float your name over there, see if you want to come out there and do content for you? And then like that connection became, and then we did like a bunch of like a few other events for that same band, because of this one person that knew that person. And then like that festival was huge, and we like did a bunch of the show. I'm like, that's just from knowing one person. And then also like making sure your name, reputation, and work speaks for itself, to where like this person is confident enough to give your name out to other people.
Oh, yeah.
Like is another thing.
No, I feel like we are huge benefactors of, just being the right people at the right place at the right time. People, they see, what we've done, because we've documented everything. We have recaps for all of our shows, if 90% of them, and people, they can see like, okay, I can always say, hey, you can go check out our YouTube and see what we've done over the years. So we've always benefited from, all right, I know this artist that wants to go on the road. Can you guys do it? I know this artist that needs a show in Dallas. I know this artist that needs a show in Fort Worth, needs a show in San Antonio. Can you guys do it? And we're like, yeah, we can do it. And then sometimes we don't even know who the artist is. We do our research on them. Okay, all right, yeah, they have some stuff going. Yeah, we can take it on, and it ends up being something huge, And it's like, all right, we were able to benefit from having a good reputation, like you said, having connections, having a network to be able to book this artist, and also just because of this person that was connected to them reached out to us, so just being right person, right time, luck, having good relationships. And it's also, I also like to say, one opportunity turns into 5 opportunities, and then just because, all right, for an example, all right, I have this event, like I said, somebody else sees it, all right, they have in mind, oh, this company does events. Whenever I need somebody, I'm going to reach out to them. Another person's like, hey, I have a band, that needs to do this. So that's 2.
Yeah.
A DJ says, oh, I see you guys promote. I need you to promote my event. That's another opportunity. We have our clothing. Somebody says, hey, can you make some merch for us? Boom. Oh, can you guys come out to another event and sell your clothes? 5 different opportunities that came just from us having that one event, and then you go execute on those 5 opportunities, that 5 turns into 25. And it's just like, boom. And let's say you miss a few, you don't capitalize on 25, you capitalize on 7 of them. Those 7 opportunities multiplied by 5, you're back up to 35, so, and then of course it's not always realistic, but that's always something that, I told myself in the beginning, and it just kind of came to fruition, kind of like everything else, and always, like we started the podcast, being prepared, and that doesn't mean that, oh, you have to have, $15,000-$20,000 right now. You have to have the, the money to travel. It's just like, hey, I have a baseline of what I can do. If you're a company, hey, I have 20 shirts that I'm going to go pop up and sell. You're a promotion company, hey, I have this one venue that I know that they'll let me throw some stuff. I got, these few artists that I know can bring out 5 people, and just having like, hey, knowing, being self-aware of what you can do. And it's like, all right, I'm going to start here. And like you said, knowing how, to grow it from there. Sometimes you put some stuff out, it doesn't get the best reaction, but that's all a part of the story. And I feel like the best part about us having, these social media profiles is that, it's like our built-in resume, our built-in scrapbook, and also just consuming, being able to, thinking as a consumer, one of the first things I do whenever I find out about a company or an artist, I go search up their YouTube. I go search up their Spotify, their Apple Music. What do they have, from back in the day? Go to their Instagram, and being able just to watch the progression. That's what consumers want. So never delete that stuff, And
I used to be like, oh, I got to delete like whole stuff. And this is maybe when I was in a band. But now I see like how that's like the exact map of like, look how better like you're doing. You know what I mean? And sometimes it takes you taking that step back and reflecting and be like, okay, like wait, because again, some days are just tough and just like, oh, you know, like this didn't go as far, you know, or as good as I wanted it to go, or, you know, whatever. But like seeing, okay, but one, you're still doing it now, and like, and two, like go look at the first one. Okay, go look at like, you know, last year, like what were you doing? Like, you know, how much better like are you doing now? Or like, and it also like helps you reflect. Like, am I doing as better as I want to? No, okay. How do we do it? Like, you are? Okay, good. Like, then again, it serves both purposes, like to improve and to notice that you have improved. Like both of those things like get met there. You did mention something here really quick, and I don't know why it randomly popped up, but you were talking about like, oh, doing your research and like on certain artists that sometimes you don't know. Do you think that you guys, or you have like perfected your formula on how to like determine that? Because that's a big thing with like shows, and that's something we've ran into. And then like I remember early on with us, we had a show, and we got, I don't even know where it came from, but it was like our maybe third or fourth show, and it was this artist, and he was asking for like, I can't remember how much it was, but it was again our first year within months, and it was like a lot more than we like could do. So we like made some ridiculous deal with them where it was like a big door split or whatever. But we had no one, we asked around like, has anyone heard of this artist? And no, everyone was like, no. I'm like, why is he asking for so much? That's crazy. And then we looked it up and we're like, okay, music's interesting, but like I don't think we knew exactly how to like do the research at the time. And then this show we did at the Post, and it's sold out within 2-3 hours, I think. The show did. And I remember day of, like when it was out, it was one of our early shows. The line was like out the door around the corner, and we're like, where the fuck did this guy come from? Like, and that's why I'm asking, because I feel like in the beginning we had such a hard time. Like, how do we gauge like these new artists? Because again, like these are risks that you're taking. So there's got to be like some sort of, and I'm going to say formula in a loose term, but like there's probably certain things. But how do you feel about it now versus like early on? Oh yeah,
like early on, it was literally trying to hit the lottery. I was like, all right, this person that somebody says that they're big, and it's like, man, I don't know, I guess let's try it, you know. And then a lot of times, we definitely took a lot of losses of not really knowing like what to do or like what metrics to look at, and just over time, just kind of like, all right, you live and learn, and you know, you start to learn those lessons of all right, how can we look at, you know, their social media interactions, and there's different like websites that you can become subscribers to where you can look up artist interactions and what cities they're big in, and it's also like, all right, knowing, hey, I can ask this artist, where do you think your pool is? Be honest with me, because you know, it got to a point after taking so many losses, like, hey man, we're in this together. Okay, you don't want to perform in front of nobody. We want to make some money, you know, so we can, you know, keep doing this. You know, our goal was like, all right, for us to be a business, we have to, you know, at least make our money back so we can just keep going. You know, and we were telling other people like, hey, like, you know, for us to be able to keep doing cool stuff, you know, we have to have people in the building. This is how we keep the lights on, you know, and being able to ask the artist, all right, where do you know that you'll do well in? Let's book you there. Let me see your stats, you know, because they have access to all that. And that's whenever, you know, you start to learn like, okay, this many listeners, it usually most of the time correlates to this many people coming out. And then you just kind of learn from there. But there's still to this day, there's outliers where, you know, this city is on the bottom of their charts, but like you said, that line is out of the building. You're like, what? Like, and then other cities where they have the highest listeners and people don't come out. And it's like, even you can have the best formula down to a T, you're still banking on humans coming out. You're still banking on humans that have real life situations. The economy, you know, that's a big factor into what's going on, you know. So it's, at the end of the day, it is always a gamble, but you do your best. A funny story that I have is, so we have our yearly festival, year 3000 festival. You know, it was the third installment this past year, 3024. And then it was April 5th and April 6th. April 5th in DFW, April 6th in San Antonio. So we're doing everything, we're planning for it. We've done this, plenty of times, done the festival thing, buying flights for artists, doing everything, buying flights for ourselves, hotels, rental cars. And it's like, man, why is everything so expensive? All the rental cars are expensive. All the flights are expensive. And it's to the point where we have to fly in some people on Spirit. And I don't like that. Artists do not like that. Somebody like me, I'll fly Spirit. I'll get there. It's a little bumpy, but that if you notice, Spirit, that's one of the only airlines that haven't had any crashes lately.
That is true. I did see that.
So we end up having to book some people on Spirit, and we're looking at hotels. They're so expensive, and then so we had the first night in DFW. We live in DFW, and then the next night San Antonio. We have to drive to San Antonio. I wake up that morning. I have a rental car booked months ago. Enterprise is sold out. I'm trying to get it from downtown. And it's a Saturday morning. Nothing else is open. Everything else is sold out.
Yeah.
I have to go to, I think it's $1. It's something downtown.
Yeah.
I have to pay $700 for a one-day rental. And then I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm in line, and somebody's in front of me. They're saying, like, oh, yeah. I hear them whispering. And it's like, oh, yeah, the eclipse. And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, yeah, the eclipse. Like, that's why everything's sold out, the eclipse. And I'm like,
wow.
I've been planning this huge 2-day festival for 4 or 5 months. And I didn't realize that I planned it the same weekend as the eclipse, a once in 100 years phenomenon.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no matter how hard you try, you can do everything for this event, and there's still stuff that's outside of your purview.
Yeah.
That you're not knowing to look up. So from that, I know any day I'm doing, what holidays, who else is in town, what else is going on, and it's like another thing that you live and you learn. But it's like,
there's shit that you just learned because you fuck up, like
because you fuck up and you live through it.
And you have to live through it. Like that's the only reason. Like and there's a lot of shit. Like especially like when people will tell you, like people in the industry or people whatever, like oh like don't do this or whatever. And then like I always like, depending on who's saying it, like or giving me advice or telling me something or realize or stuff that I tell people like oh don't do this. I always give the story behind it or try to hear the story from like, okay, there's a reason you're saying this shit. Like, I need to know what the experience was like, because like shit like that, like who plans to look at like, oh, the eclipse and me, like, again, like I didn't know until like this shit was like online or whatever. They're talking about it happening. But like these people, like there was a big group of people like planning on it, and like where we were on that line, like where it was like the total like eclipse or whatever.
And it's like, man, of course, and just the work that goes behind into something like that, and it's like, man, I had no control over this. And then
was that April? You said,
yeah,
so
last
that's about
April.
To be a year.
Yeah, about a year from that.
That shit
and
was
then,
wild. Yeah.
Later on that year, last July, we had our first event in Minneapolis. Same thing. No hotels, the flight's expensive. And I'm like, man, what's going on? And then and I just hear like an Uber driver told me, oh yeah, the Rolling Stones are in town. And I'm like, are you fucking serious? What's my luck? Like same day, Yeah, man. So
no, there's I mean one thing you said, like one of the in this industry, like in event booking, stuff like that, the biggest variable is people.
Absolutely.
And people can choose to stay home or go out, and the easiest like is you could just not do anything. Like I think I heard a long time ago, like it was some comedian, but it was like, yeah, like the easy decision to do is not to do like the thing that you want to do or whatever. Even if like you love something, like people will love artists and bands and stay home. Like, so there's that. There's also like what other things are happening, not only show wise, like, cause you have all these like shows, if you're doing stuff on the weekend, like the odds are you are going to be competing with like something. And then
absolutely.
If these are your same fan bases and stuff like that, because of what we were talking about earlier, where like people listen to so many different things, like that you can't just base it on like, well, there's nothing else this genre going on. Cause like somebody, who loves this band, like might also love something over here that's like a pop show, or like there's a comedian coming into town the same day you have their favorite band. They're choosing one or the other, like, or again, like they're not going home. But it's one of the biggest variables, and with stuff like getting expensive, also people like saving money, so they're like planning on like, what am I gonna be spending?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that you can't really control, but the most of it, like you just have to hold up your end. Like, what can you do? Like, how do I make sure that this shit is worth it for them, so that they are like, oh, if they come out, they're like, I'm glad I came out, and I'll come out again. Like, and I think that's one thing that you guys have done really well, because of the success that you've had, because of like the opportunities that you've created for yourself, because of like, you know, going out of state, having like regular shows now, like out of state, and you know, now out of the country, and about to go out of the country again. Like, these are all like signs and evidence. I'm like, okay, like we are doing our part. Like, and then again, the people is a variable, but like you are adding as much control to that as you can with like the work that you're putting in.
Yeah, man. We always like to look at it from a consumer point of view. From the beginning, it was okay. All right, we see people doing events, but are we giving people like what they actually want to see? Like, the people that are on this stage right now, can I walk down the street and is anybody going to know them? Mm-hmm. So it's all about, you know, in business, finding that market inefficiency, you know, and it's all right. Okay, we're going to grab some people that people want to see. How can we make it better for the fans? You know, how can we interact with them more? How can we, you know, make the experience for them better so they choose, you know, to come to our events, mm-hmm. you know? And we're just huge on, you know, thinking about the consumers, mm-hmm. and just, you know, what would we like if we were going to an event, you know? Yeah. So that's really something that we're big on, and also constantly critiquing ourselves, mm-hmm. you know, because it's, you know, it's like like I said, it's like a baby, you know, it's like a living thing, you know, it's growing, it's evolving, it's progressing, it's getting better. So the only way to do that is constantly auditing yourself, seeing what's going on. How can we do better? How can we promote it better? How can we make it a more better experience for fans? I mean, there are times when we were throwing shows in stinky hot warehouses, no AC, you know, and it was like, all right, we're to a point that we can't do that, you know, we can't do that to these people anymore. I mean, being from Texas, like, all right, we're used to it, but it's like, all right, man, we're having people pass out, like, we can't keep doing this, you know, and it's like, all right, how can we do better? How can we up the quality of where we're doing stuff? And that only comes from, you know, all right, being better, having better resources. And like you said earlier, it's all right, it's a business, it has to sustain, you know, it has to grow, and it's all right, setting a goal. It's all right, we've been doing some cool stuff, losing money. All right, let's try to at least break even. Mm-hmm. All right, we're breaking even, we're doing some cool stuff. All right, let's try to just make a little bit of profit. Mm-hmm. All right, we're making some profit, let's make a little bit more, and not just to, all right, put it in our pockets. It's like, all right, so we can keep growing and keep getting bigger.
It's a big reinvestment is
always,
the name of the game.
Always reinvestment.
Like, it really is. And I want, and hopefully, like, I've talked to like a few now, and being part of like a promotion company now, and like having people on it who, because like, you know, I talked to, you know, Ethan, who runs this place and stuff like that. So I try to make it known as much as possible to people that a lot of this shit is just, it's being reinvested. Like, and this is why the growth happens, because a lot of the money like is going back into it, like to get a bigger artist, or to get a you know, to be able to put this same artist like in other places and get into different markets. And one thing that Dizzy mentioned when I spoke to him on the podcast is that you guys definitely take the approach of like, if this one isn't profitable, like we got to come out with something, whether it's a new connection, whether it's a new venue, like you know, a new artist that we worked with, so we got to see like how they did, like something's got to pay off somewhere, that's going to pay off, you know, somewhere else, like, you know, with this, you know, with this thing, like whether it's like, but he's like, but the goal obviously like is to be profitable. But yeah, and actually, I think I was, for some reason it popped. Somebody liked the clip that I put up of him, but he was talking about like, so he's like, some people in the industry don't want to make money. He's like, and that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. No. That post, it did a lot, and that's something that me and him we talk about a lot, and it's which I respect. Like some people, they do it, you know, just for the love, and that's always needed in every industry. But it's also, you know, what our goal is. It's always been to, like you said, grow and reinvest just so we can keep it growing. Like,
well, just sustainability alone. Like, how are you going to keep doing it? Like,
exactly.
If it's coming into your pocket every time, or even again, like even if you want, because you're gonna want to book like a bigger artist, or like maybe you need more staff, or maybe like whatever it is, like it's going to take more money. Like, so you, even if you plan it like that, like to be able to afford it, to keep doing it. If you keep like barely hanging on, you're not gonna want to keep doing it. And then you lose somebody in the scene who's putting on those shows. That is a big deal for like, local artists, or, artists trying to come through town, like from out of town. Like when you lose like a lot more of those people booking those shows because, they're not maybe paying as much attention to like, how do we make these like profitable, or how do we like, make money out of these, again, to continue the reinvestment or whatever. For whatever reason, like you won't keep doing it if you're struggling every time just to like create these things. Yeah.
So it's about support, like you always got to go out and support these artists that you want to see. And then that's on every level, and there's examples of it on every level, like the big artists that you may like, however size, you buy their merch, you stream their music, you go to their shows. That's how they eat. That's how they're able to survive and keep going. To the local level, all right, you go to the events, that kind of, gets that goes to the promoter, and they're able to keep the stuff going, and it just all flows like that. And a big part of it is, if you're doing this, if you're on the side of, you're an artist, you're an event coordinator, you're a clothing owner, it's okay. If I want this to be my career, I need to have a goal of, profit, That's the only way it can sustain. A lot of people, I feel like they start this, but they don't connect like one with another, that this is a business. It has to make money. It has to sustain. The only way for it to grow is for it to make more money than it loses and reinvest.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, they start something, they have a little bit of success, they want to quit their job, But it's like, hey, like, peaks and valleys, like we said earlier. So whenever you're peaking, you can afford to pay your bills with it. But whenever you're in a valley and that money, that little bit of money you're making has to go to pay your bills, then you can't go get more clothes. You can't book another artist. You can't go back to the studio, So it's a big part of having that balance of, hey, you still got to keep some kind of revenue coming in, as hard as it is, to work a job and pursue your dreams. I feel like that's the most surefire way to make it happen. And, give you that extra drive. Whenever you're at work, think about all the stuff you're going to do whenever you get off, for your business, just kind of utilize it and see that, hey, this is what's keeping me afloat right now. This is what's able to keep this train going.
Yeah.
This is how I'm able to invest into myself by having this job. So I know a lot of people, or I've heard people say, hey, well, if you commit 40 hours to your craft, you should be able to make that money. Hey, it's not, it don't really work like that.
There's no hourly pay, but the investment has to be there, whether it's monetary, whether it's time. Like when you can't do money, then time. Like what can you? There are things that will help your business that aren't money related. Because money's not going to fix everything. You got to know what to do with it. And also like, so again, like,
you got to be on your feet.
Meeting people, making these connections, like, going out and making sure that you're, posting about it, talking to these artists, like researching like your artists, like what's going to best serve like your show here? Like what does this fan base like enjoy? Like what's going to keep them like coming to another show? Like, because I mean, every artist has so many variables, and like in the entertainment like business, it's a lot of, and booking, it's a lot of hospitality. Like you are catering to like a crowd coming in, so like that's who's gonna make you that money, who's gonna be able to help you pay for these artists, help you, again, just be able to afford the people working the show. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff without money where you're like, okay, how do I create the best like product, or which product can be like the show, product can be like your clothing, all of it. How do you make the best version of that, and how do you keep like improving on it? But a weird sidestep, I do want to, like, you've worked with over the years a lot of like pretty incredible artists. Like who are some of like the biggest ones that you work with? So
some biggest artists, NLE Choppa, Tay Money, Zero, Xavier Wolf, like we mentioned, D Savage, Mike Jones, Thousand Band Fawny, I don't know, Jeffrey, Black Smurf, that's who we have on tour right now.
This is going to Canada with you, right?
Yeah,
okay.
That's who we're going to Canada and to 14 other cities across the country. Amber London, a lot of Black Raider Clan, Young Simi, Kasky, Landon Cube, Big Tony. It's a lot. Sauce Walker. We did a handful of dates with him. Dom Corleo, Autumn. We've worked with a lot of artists over a large spectrum, you know, and some bands. I can't mention those bands off the top of my head. Dizzy, you know, that's more his forte. Yeah. So being able to book a lot of those artists, and we've done shows from Portland, Seattle, San Diego, Los Angeles, down to Albuquerque, Phoenix, all through Florida, Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville. We've done New York, Chicago, Memphis. We've done Raleigh, North Carolina. We've done New Orleans, Louisiana. We've done all throughout Texas. It's Minneapolis. And just starting from Fort Worth, you know, Denton, Texas, Arlington, you know, to be able to grow out nationally and internationally, you know, Medellin, Colombia, and being able to hit, you know, the cities I mentioned earlier in Canada. I always like to say that I've achieved my dreams already. You know, having people send me pictures of other people wearing clothing, or setting up somewhere and somebody buying, you know, something that I designed, seeing, you know, hundreds of people at an event, you know, being able to talk to and, you know, do business with artists that I've listened to, you know. Well, before, you know, I even thought of doing any of this, it's like, all right, I've already achieved my dreams. Now it's just about, you know, making this as big as possible and working with as many people as I can, and just making sure that, you know, my future generations, you know, that they're well taken care of, you know, because it's like, if we made it this far, then who says that we can't be, you know, the next Live Nation, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, not putting the ceiling on yourself is like the right way to go. Like it always seems in almost every example I've seen of somebody doing and being successful what they do, somebody has told them their idea was fucking crazy.
Man.
Like somebody has told them that, like, you can't fucking do that, or you're wasting time.
That hits a different, that hits home right there, because whenever I'm starting this, you know, almost 15 years ago, you know, there's people very close around me saying, hey, you're spending too much time in this, you know, you need to go get this job, you need to go do this, or, you know, hey, this isn't going to work. People really close to me, and it's like, man, that hurts. And it's just like, man, you know, this is all I got, you know, like, this don't work, I don't know what will, you know. And of course, you know, you're always gonna make a way, you gotta survive. But it was like, man, even whenever it wasn't making money, I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing, you know. And I told myself early on, I was like, hey, I'm always gonna do this, you know, just because, you know, this is what I love, you know. And just for it to slowly, you know, whenever it didn't look like it was going to be anything, and just slowly just pick up steam, and just slowly start to grow. Okay, we're outside of DFW. Okay, we're in California. Okay, we're in Arizona. Okay, we've booked Xavier Wolf now. And it's just like, now it's kind of like undeniable. And just to watch that grow, it's kind of like, I've let go of all of that spite, and it's just like, man, like, I just want to see how far I can go now.
Yeah, like, I had this early on when I was talking about, like, because the podcast came around like as a really kind of a weird trajectory, because it was supposed to be temporary, to promote the chill sounds. Actually, the Aero was part of the fest, and literally, again, I've told this story a bunch of times, but DJ was asking me. That was before NoiseROT was a thing. So DJ was just trying to do this on his own. And then I was just like helping. I was like, if you need help, like, you know, let me know. And he was like, yeah, I just need ways to promote this thing. And I'm like, I had just started listening to like podcasts, I think like 2 months earlier or some shit. And I was like, oh, I could do a podcast for you. Like, I'll just interview, you know, some of the artists like that were playing the fest. Like, I'll do 6 episodes. Like, there was like 6 weeks until then. Yeah. And we were talking about it. And I was just like, I'll do 6 episodes, like one every week. And, you know, we'll figure it out. Cool. I fucking like procrastinate and don't do it. And then like 2 weeks before the fest, I'm just like, fuck, like, I'm a piece of shit. Like, I promised him like I would help, and like I haven't done anything. And I was like, fuck it, we're gonna do it. And then I did 6 episodes and put them out in 2 weeks for the fest. It was fucking awful. I never want to do it again. Because I I think 3 out of the 6 I traveled to people's like houses or to do the or like where I met them, and so I had to like take all this equipment that I barely knew how to set up and like knew it. It was very like nerve wracking, and did these, and I'm just like, okay, well I'll just keep doing it like for the fest or whatever. But after like we got to December and I got to most of like those Chill Sounds artists, I was like, fuck, I want to keep doing this. But there was a moment where because we had our first show, and our first show was pretty big for like what we were doing. And I booked like an artist that I've listened to like for fucking years. Or I booked, DJ booked, but we the company booked, you know. And then like I was like, oh fuck, like I want to talk to people like this, like blah blah blah. And I was ready to jump to like that end goal or like a goal that I had in mind. I was like, oh, I can jump there right away.
Yeah.
And then like I remember catching myself and like telling myself, I was like, I don't want to speak to these people as just a fan. Like I want to speak to them like as a peer. So I want to get there. Like I want to, if we are in the same room, I want it to make sense why we're in the same room. Like why am I talking to you? You know what I mean? Not just because like, oh, you know, somebody happened to say like I want it. Again, a lot of my life has been like I want to earn like the things that I do, and I do struggle with like determining sometimes where I think I don't earn things. I think I get lucky, and in my life I've learned like, oh, most of those like are opportunities I created. But at that moment I knew I was wanting to take a jump that I wasn't ready for. And I'm just like, okay, like let's build. Let's see if you are going to do this. Like, are you showing up every day? Like, are you going to actually pursue this? And like to see where it's progressed to like now, like I'm over 3 years in now, and seeing even just how better like I am at speaking like to people, how not as difficult it is to get people to do this thing. Where at first I'm just like, oh, nobody wants to do this or whatever. And then now like again being like, oh yeah, like I'm booked out to like 2 months out. Like, and that's like me because like I only want to do like that much at a time. But people again wanting to come on here and meeting people, and it just keeps getting better, and like other opportunities opening up because of it. And I'm like, that feels better, that progression, because like you're able to reflect back and be like, I put in this work, like it makes sense that I'm here, you know. And I think that's a direct reflection of like what y'all have done, like the artists that you've worked with throughout your entire trajectory, because you've put yourself in like places you needed to be at the right moments, you know what I mean? And it's shown in the progression that you guys have made. And then random last question just to end on, we were talking about the artists that you've worked with, you know, stuff. Are there any that you like, again, there's nothing out of the realm, like, but what are some of like your like maybe dream artists, or like even like ones that you plan to like do in the future?
Currency, you know, and then I mentioned earlier, you know, I came up with the idea of Aeronotiqz from a song, you know, I was listening to from him, and he's somebody that definitely like motivated me. I listened to, you know, since like 2007, you know, actually 2005, you know, whenever he was signed to Lil Wayne. So that's somebody that's definitely, you know, on our radar, and definitely, hopefully, fingers crossed for the year is over, that we'll be able to book. And then at that point, I might have to retire. Cause it's like, man, like it all came full circle, you know. And then like anybody who actually knows me, they'll know like, you know, like how much that means to me. And like for me to do that, it'll just be like, man, like I kind of like achieved everything, but you know, I'm never gonna stop. You know, it's gonna keep going, and then hopefully we get to the point of, you know, booking Beyonce, Rihanna, you know. But you know, that's definitely something, you know, that I definitely want to, you know, add to my resume and knock off of, you know, just one of the people or another person that I listen to, and then I'll be able to do business with them, and you know, do good business and just keep growing, and hopefully, you know, give them some clothing and get some pictures of them wearing the clothes, and you know, just keep it rolling from there.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I definitely think it's definitely in the realm. It's not like a wild at all for that like to happen. And again, I don't see a limit for like what you guys do, because every time I see or talk to like one of you about what's going on, it's like it's leveled up again, and like it keeps going like past, you know, anything that, you know, even at first, like seeing how it started and being like anywhere, I mean, I didn't see the picture as clearly as like, you know, you did, and you kept going to figure out like where you're going. It's so cool that it keeps like, again, you keep doing more and more. And again, for someone in the same, type of industry and doing some of the same stuff, it's really cool to be able to see that. And people that I like know and have seen it, like, maybe not from the very beginning, but very early, and seeing where it is now and being like, oh, it's nice to see like, oh, this shit can be done. Like, it just takes the work.
Yeah.
And I like that without you even like having to really preach it or say it. Like, again, the actions will always speak louder than words, and like being able to see like, oh, they are doing it. Like, it is possible. It's something that I've like focused a lot more because of getting older and whatever, being able to do that for like younger generations, and them again, like them being like, okay, there's this lane exists and I can also create my own, and just it's really fucking cool.
See, and then something that I started telling myself this very, very early is that these are industries that'll never die. These are industries that have been around since, almost the beginning of time. People, they're always going to need clothes to wear. People, they're always going to need music to listen to. People, they're always going to need social gatherings. These are businesses that are never going to go away. So people, they should never think that, oh, like, there's no room for me in this space, because there's always going to need it. Every day a new brand is created, another one, stop producing, Maybe they went out of business. Maybe they just decided to put it down. Every time somebody picks up the mic, somebody puts down the mic. They can't make music anymore. Every day somebody wants to throw their first show, somebody threw their last show. So there's always room in this space. And why not? Why can't your idea be the one that works? Why can't your music be the one that's topping the charts? Why can't your promotion company be the one that's throwing the biggest festival in your town? There's always room, there's always space. And like you said, never put a cap on yourself, never limit yourself. If your cap is, 100 people events, if your cap is, 50 people listening to you, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Whatever you want to do, you can achieve it. And I've seen it. All you need is, 100 people listening to you in X amount of cities, and you can live whatever kind of life you want. Or if you want to aspire to have, one of the biggest careers, it's all what you want. And I really feel like we all create our own life. We all create our own reality, and you can live in that. Don't let this social media stuff trick you into be like, no, I need to be the biggest. I need to have all these foreign cars. No, you just need to be happy, and then you'll know when you're happy. So, and you can never, you can't get discouraged on the way. And whenever you find that happiness, you'll know it, and you'll be able to maneuver from there. So as a person who's lived it and a person who's gone through all that turmoil of not feeling like you're doing enough, not feeling like it's resonating, not feeling like you're making enough money, you just got to keep going and just keep believing in yourself and just keep being positive, keep positive people around you, and you'll find your niche, you'll find that pocket, and you'll kind of just maneuver from there. I really believe now I'm happy, but I'm happy in knowing that, hey, I still want more. In the beginning, there was people who said that, oh, you're money hungry, oh, you're this or that. And it's like, hey, no, there's just something that I want. And I see it, and I just keep getting these little gems that what I'm doing is right, and what I'm doing, it's working. And it's just like, you just keep following those crumbs, keep following that trail, and it just leads to some of the craziest shit I've never even thought of, like I didn't travel outside of Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana until this business, It literally took me out of, my home into all these different, places all around the country, and now all around the world. So it's just being able to live that. It's just like, man, I'm just more than blessed. Like I said, I've achieved all my dreams, and I'm just here to tell people, hey, it's possible and you can do it. And 9 times out of 10, you can see what I've done. You're a little bit smarter than me, and you can capitalize on it and do it even bigger and better than what we're doing it. So never give up, never put a cap on yourself, and always be true to yourself, and, chase after what you want.
Hell yeah, man. I like that. That's a great way to end on this podcast. That's the message that I love when people share it. I love when people share the story of like getting there, and and when people get to the root of like why you should be doing something, which is should be happy. But man, I appreciate you stopping by the podcast.
Oh man, I appreciate you inviting me, man.
Yeah, I mean it's cool, but we pretty much talked about like the essence of aeronautics, which is the science of progressions. That's this whole conversation kind of like encapsulated that, and that's kind of sick. And again, like you guys have done so many amazing things, and I know you're gonna keep doing amazing things. Before we wrap up, anything you want to plug in the tour? What the tour is starting?
Yes, we want to plug in the tour. The tour starts now next week in Dallas Fort Worth, April 11th at Holton Theater. Then we head to San Antonio at Paper Tiger, and we finish that first weekend in Austin, and then we head out to California, 3 cities out there. Next week, Albuquerque and El Paso. Then we hit Tucson, Phoenix, Minneapolis, Nashville, Indianapolis, and Chicago. Hard to remember it all. So we got the Hustle Chaos Tour coming up from April up until that first day in June. And then after that, Canada in the fall. And hopefully next year, we're bringing Black Smurf over to Europe and to New Zealand and Australia. So that's the plan. And to hit whatever cities that we didn't hit. I know there's a lot of fans that wanted them in Houston, Denver, and a few other cities, but we're going to do it again, even bigger next year. And whatever other artists that you guys want to see, let us know, DM us at Aerolife Shows, at aerolifeshows@gmail.com. Everybody contact us. Our doors are open. We want to do business with everybody. Anything, any place where people gather, we want to be a part of it. So let us know what you guys want, and we're going to bring it to you.
Sick. Sounds good, man. Well, again, I appreciate you stopping by. This has been episode 139 with Tiron from Aeronotiqz. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you next time.